Hey y'all, what's going on? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, and I'm bringing to you another Kick Your Butt Out episode. As usual, before I get off into the content of the day, I have to say what I always say, and I strongly encourage you to get this into your thought process, right? So that you can incorporate this into your lives. And that is, if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. And that, my friends, is a promise. All right, let me get off into what I want to talk about today. First, I want to do a short rebuttal from last week's episode of Kick Your Butt Out. It was titled But We. And I talked about how we in the church, right? And again, this is not from a malicious or evil standpoint. We mean well, but we have been ball and chaining people to some marriages that wisdom would tell them to leave, because some of these people, it has costed them their lives staying in the marriage. And we quite often quote, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to death do you part, to people when we telling people to stay in these marriages. And I talked about last week that that's not scriptural. That God didn't say that in the word. That's a vow, a beautiful vow. Let me say that. It's a beautiful vow. There's nothing evil about the vow. It's a beautiful vow. For better, for worse, for richer, for poor, sickness and health, and to death do you part. Again, God didn't. That's not in the Bible, in the 66 books of the Bible. But we have been teaching people or talking to people like that is scriptural, and people stick by that and end up dead. And so I talked about that last week. I talked about, the fact that the scripture does say what God has joined together, let no man take asunder. But God didn't put all of these marriages together. Some of these marriages God didn't put together. Let me say that. The other thing that the other point that I had made was God told us to use wisdom. And sometimes wisdom says, leave before you end up dead. Lastly, as a confirmation for me that I needed to talk about what I talked about last week, because it trust me, you all, it had taken me, it was a while before I had the courage, because I was concerned about what the church and what people was going to say about me saying the things that I talked about in last week's episode. And so, like I said, it took me a while to have the courage to do it. And again, the confirmation was I had someone reach out to me and say, Brother Paul, this was right on time, and it brought back memories because I had a friend that was near and dear to my heart. I have it in my phone. I have a friend that was near and dear to my heart, that we would tell this person to get out of the marriage because there was physical abuse. Obviously, if there's physical abuse, there's all other sorts of abuse that goes with it. And because of the person didn't believe in divorce, they stayed and ended up dead. So it was confirmation that I needed to say what the church ain't saying. Because again, we talk about a lot of other things that happens in the marriage, in our home, in church, but I've been saved since 1995, going to church since 1996. I've never heard anyone in the church, in a pulpit, nowhere in the church say, hey, if you're being abused, if you're being beat, your hand, when people are putting their hands on you, get up, get out of that marriage. I've never heard anybody say that, and that needs to be said. Because again, God did not say stay in that marriage till he kills you or she kills you. He didn't say that. He didn't say stay in that marriage if your children are being hurt and harmed and raped and disgraced and all of these things in that marriage. God didn't say stay in that marriage. He said use wisdom. So I talked about all of those things last week because, again, the church hasn't been talking about it. And again, I want to thank Kirk Franklin for having the courage to say what he had said concerning how we in the church are in error as it relates to marriage. Now, again, I'm not encouraging anybody to go and for some crazy reason to go get divorced. But if you're being abused, Maya Angelou said it like this: when they tell you who they are, believe them the first time. So if she puts her hands on you the first time, leave. He put his hands on you the first time, leave, because chances are it's going to happen again. And I want to say that there are many people in jail in the name of I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to kill her. I didn't mean to kill him. You meant to hit him. And that hit killed him. So anyway, again, I'm saying all that to say we need to have more conversations around this subject in church, because the reality of it is you're not going to tell me that we have churches with thousands of people in it and nobody is going through this. Now, we talk about infidelity, finances, speaking the love languages, things of that nature, dating and all that kind of stuff. But we're not talking about, hey, if you're being beat, you got to get out of there. We're not talking about that. So, and it happens in marriage. Children are being raped in some of these homes, and they in the church. The other thing that I want to say is people are staying in marriages because they've been told divorce is not an option, but you have one of the significant others, one of the people that's in the couple being irresponsible from a financial standpoint to the place of foreclosure and them ended up living on the street. And the kids, they got to keep in mind, when they foreclose on the house, they're not going to put the parents out and let the kids stay. Everybody has to go, which means that the children, I'm not even talking about the adults, but that means that the children aren't getting adequate sleep, so they aren't able to concentrate and focus on their studies. They're probably not able to do their homework properly. They're not getting fed right. And a lot of times they're not able to take care of their hygiene because they're sleeping in their cars and in their vans and in their trucks due to the fact that one of the spouses in the relationship wasn't taking care of the finances in the proper way, and they ended up homeless. Now, again, God says use wisdom. So if you're in a marriage and your significant other is doing this, and you have a family to take care of, and you're constantly saying to your significant other, hey, this is what's going to happen if you don't stop it. Please, please, please. And that person doesn't stop it, you got to be wise enough to know I got to go, because if I don't, my kid's going to be on the street. And not only the fact that the kids end up on the street, now you got the kids saying, okay, wait a minute, if a God wants me to stay with a husband or a wife that will put not only them, but us as children on the streets, I don't want to serve a God like that. I don't want to be married if that's what marriage looks like. And it doesn't. It doesn't. So again, not just saying, hey, for any stupid reason to go get a divorce, but if people's lives are being jeopardized, whether it's spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, if people's lives are being jeopardized and you're pleading with your significant other to stop this and the significant other isn't, I'm saying please leave. Because again, other people are being affected by it as well. So I'll leave. That's the end of that. I want to talk today about But We Part 2, right, from a recovery standpoint. And what do I mean by recovery? When the word recovery is mentioned, we automatically go to substance use disorder, or what you all may call addiction. You never hear alcoholism being mentioned, or very seldom hear alcohol being mentioned when you talk about the need. When you talk about addiction or the need for recovery, we always talking about recovery or addiction to drugs, recovery from drugs or addiction to drugs. Alcohol is a drug too. It's one of the most deadliest drugs that's known to man, but we don't talk about that in church. We talk about street drugs and all of these, pills and, heroines and opioids and cocaines and all of those kind of things, but we don't talk about alcohol as much in church, and we need to. Here's one of the reasons why I say we need to is because in my church, I am one of the 4 who co-facilitate a small group in my church called Fellowship for Recovery. And it's a bunch of us who come together. We don't come together from a AA or NA standpoint. Not that that's the bad thing. That's good. But we come together from a recovery standpoint, talking about how can we recover from the trauma that led us, the trauma and the hurt and the pain that led us to a place where drugs or alcohol was our answer or safe place. That's what we talk about. And that's what needs to be talked about more, because I'm sitting here today, a man in recovery for 9 years and 4 months, because I had someone come to talk to me about recovery from a why. Why did you use? What was the reason that got you to a place where drugs or alcohol? I wasn't into alcohol, but drugs was your safe place and your answer, because that's what drugs and alcohol ultimately are for us. It masks or hides or subsides or suppresses the pain, the trauma, and all of the other things that we are going through. And we're not having these conversations in church. And like I said, I co-facilitate a small group at our church, and I've had many people come talk to me, and they're reeking of alcohol in church. I've had people come talk to me, and they're high in church. Our small group, sometimes we have to ask administration to do a cutoff in terms of people signing up, because we have so many people signing up for the group from time to time that we know we won't have enough room in our houses to carry that big load, right? Or that amount of people. Here's the problem with it. Many of those people don't even show up. Maybe 25% of the people show up that sign up, and that's outside of the 5 or 6 of us that has been coming to this group from the beginning. We've had this group going on for a little over 3 years, going on 4 years, and we have maybe 5 or 6 of us that has been coming since the beginning. And again, outside of us, there may be 25% of the people or less that show up. And even in that 25% that shows up, maybe 15% are stay to the end of the semester. And quite often, unfortunately, when the semester is over, guess where they go back to? If they even stopped, they go back. And I just feel like us as the church need to be more intentional and more attentive about having services, some type of services or better support that will give people the courage to come out of that darkness into the light, that will have the courage to say, I do have an issue that I need to recover from so that I can stop using drugs, so that I can stop using alcohol. I do. And that's not going on. That's not going on. But we're not saying anything. We're not saying as much as we need to be saying. Let me say it like that. As a church, in our church, again, I love our church. I love the small groups that we have. We have a service in our church of marriage mentors, right? That meant that they do some wonderful work in terms of being marriage mentors. We need to have something in place like that for people who need recovery. We need to have something like that, not just in our church, but in churches across this country and across the world. Because again, like I said, I got saved in 1995. Jesus Christ has been my Lord and Savior since 1995. I did not start to have a solid foundation of recovery and healing and abstinence from the substance use and abuse till 2015. So I spent all of those years still messed up. And I didn't get the initial help from church. My church that I went to happened to be a part of my recovery support system. It wasn't the attention that I needed from a healing and recovery standpoint. It wasn't that. And we need to have that type of service in church. And the thing about it is, a lot of people who are in position in the church, thank God that they haven't had these issues with drugs, alcohol, or whatever the vices had been, or the answers to safe places, like I said, have been. Thank God they never had it. What needs to happen is, and so what I'm saying is, they really don't know how to serve that particular need, right? Again, we have a successful marriage mentoring in place because everybody is married. Everybody that's involved in it, whether it's from the top all the way down, everybody is married, and everybody is supporting what marriage is. So they know, everybody in there has experiences with marriages, multiples of years in marriages. So what am I saying? We need to have someone who has had experience with substance use disorder or alcoholism, or somebody that has had experience with the trauma and the hurt and the pain that led them to the alcoholism or substance use disorder in place, so that and make that a service in the church as well, so that people can feel safe enough to come out of those pews and go say, I need some help. I need to heal from whatever it is that we need to heal from. And that's why I'm doing this particular part of Kick Your Butt Out. Because too many of us as Christians, as children of God, are still suffering. And again, one of the primary reasons why we are suffering in silence is because we come to church. First of all, we don't have certain services. They aren't in place. And number two, everybody walking around looking and acting like they fixed. I'm being honest. Everybody walking around looking and acting like they fixed. So us who have suffered from some of those things, and I remember, back when I was a mess, I used to come to church and I like everything was okay. And it wasn't. It wasn't. And I couldn't pinpoint anybody in the church to go and have a conversation with, except for the guys that I came to church with that was fellow people in recovery like myself. Them was the only people that I was able to talk to. I wasn't able to go and talk to anybody else in the church. So I'm saying, again, no judgment at all, people. Please believe me. I'm not trying to judge at all. I just want to bring some awareness because it hurts me to see people continuing to suffer, whether you're in the church or not. I'm a motivational speaker as well. I speak at a treatment center twice a week, and it hurts me every time I hear somebody go back. And it's still, to this very day, it still hurts me when people end up dead as a result of the substance use disorder or the alcoholism. It still hurts me to this very day. That I never get numb from that. And I know for a fact that if I'm sitting here in recovery after 30 years of suffering from that madness, 30 years, you all, a lifetime for some people. I'm 9 years and 4 months into recovery. I know if it can happen for me, it can happen for many more people. And I feel like the church need to be doing a whole lot more as a whole. And here's one of the reasons why. This was a conversation that I had yesterday on Friday. I had talked about, because out here where I'm at, I've toured lots of treatment centers. And when I'm in California now, and when I was in Minnesota, I had been involved with and around lots of treatment centers. And I'm just going to be honest. The treatment centers that really care are few and far in between. Very few and far in between. The treatment centers that's in it because of $1 to get paid, they are dime a dozen. They are everywhere. And I'm going to be 100% transparent. It is ridiculous the amount of money that people pay to go to these treatment centers out here in California, and they still come out messy. It is ridiculous. And what am I saying? I'm saying that if they're not doing anything about it, it's our responsibility as the church to step up and do something about it. Because again, it's about $1 for a lot of these places. I've witnessed it firsthand. And I'm not going to put any names out there, but I've witnessed it firsthand that these people only care about money. The good treatment centers end up closed. Ain't that it? That's what I want to say that as well. The treatment centers that are really there to help people heal and recover, those are the ones whose doors end up closing. But the ones that's about $1, they stay open, and they are everywhere. I didn't know that it was that many out here in California. I'm at a place right now where I just stopped even going to the treatment centers and doing tours because I realized that they really don't care about the well-being of the individuals. They just want to fill the bed so that they can make money. I'm being honest. Again, not all of them are like that. Out of all of them that I've toured, 95% minimum are about money. And when we in the church have the people and have the resources to be able to do more. So yes, I'm glad some of these pastors and their families have not suffered from the substance use disorder or the alcoholism. But you need to find someone in that church who has turned this thing around. and appoint them to a place and a position, again, where it's intentional, right? And very attentive to healing and solving this issue in the church so that they can go and show other people who have not come to the church, that are still living on our streets, under our bridges, on our sidewalks, in our alleys, in these abandoned buildings, in these abandoned cars, and living in these God-forsaken places, so they can be able to go and show these people, the church helped me heal, and they can help you too. Again, we need to be doing this more intentional and being more attentive. This needs to be shouted to the rooftops in churches, because lastly, and I'm not going to keep going over this, but last, I want to say it again, that many people in the church are in church right now, across this country and in different parts of the world, and they're suffering in silence because we, as a whole, have shut them up from a standpoint if we really don't understand. And we come in church acting like everything is okay. And we're making it seem like a us and them type of thing, meaning that, y'all who suffer from addiction and us who haven't. And the Bible says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. To be technical, when you think about the word addiction, the real definition of addiction is continuing to engage in a behavior that is detrimental or harmful in spite of the consequences. All of us have done that. So if you want to say that you want to name people as addicts, everybody who has ever walked the face of this earth except Jesus is an addict. Yep. If you want to name addicts, you can look in your mirror. Instead of saying God saving them from addiction, he's saving you too, because you was doing something. That's one of the reasons why you need Jesus. You were doing something that caused you to need Jesus, that if he wouldn't have saved you from, you'll still be doing. Let me say that. And then when you talk about recovery is not limited to people who have had substance use disorder or alcoholism. It's not limited to them. Recovery is for people who have had some type of hurt, some type of pain, some type of trauma. And I promise you, you need recovery too, because you have had some type of hurt that you had to recover from. You had to have some type of pain that you had to recover from, and you have had some type of trauma that you have to recover from. So you are in the class too. So it's not a us and them. It's a we. It's a us. So I'm going to end this with saying, but we as the church need to step our game up, because the way that this world is going now, if the church don't do nothing, we don't get to complain about what's going to happen. We need to get these children help. We need to get these mothers help. We need to get these fathers, these men help, so that they can get in their places. And we need to open up some avenues and areas and resources in the church that's going to bring people closer to Jesus. Because after all, that's what we preach in church, that we want to get people closer to Jesus. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. Open your heart. Open up services that's going to speak specifically to that, and speak to, hey, listen, if you're being abused, get out of that marriage. If y'all gonna end up homeless, get out of that marriage. If your kids are being harmed, raped, or hurt, get out of that marriage. With that being said, that's the end of But We, Part 2. Listen, y'all, if you have any comments, you have any questions, or you just want to talk, I'm here, I'm available. Let's do this, because if there's anything that I can do to help you overcome and heal, please believe that I want to do it, because again, I know how it feels to be a Christian and living in darkness. I know how it feels to feel like you're the other person, to feel like you're nobody, to feel like you're unimportant, to feel like your voice isn't heard. I know how that feels. And I also know how it feels to be heard and to be understood and to be helped. I also know that. And so people out there in YouTube world and Kick Your Butt Out world, if it's you or if you know somebody that needs help, and I can be some help, or I can be an avenue to point you to some help. Listen, that's my mission. That's my purpose. That's my desire. That's my heart. So please, people, stop suffering in silence. You don't have to. There is some help. There is some support. And I promise you, church, we need to step our game up, period. With that being said, this is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. I love you all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Be well. Do the next right thing. God bless you all. Heal. And I'll see y'all next time on another episode of Kick Your Butt Out. Deuces.